All right, Grant Fisher. It's weird. We were just saying off air how it's still in the middle of cross country season, but we're already getting ready to talk about indoor season. Tokyo was 2 months ago, but where do we find you at right now? You're in Utah. At what point in the build for indoor season? Still early, or just like a couple weeks in at this point?
Yeah, pretty early. Yeah, we were talking a second ago, but the season went later than most pros are used to. I think the last time the season went this deep was maybe Doha.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think for the people that went all the way to the World Championships, I think most people are taking rather slow approaches back into the season. But yeah, indoors is right around the corner. It's, let me see what date it is today. I don't know when you're going to release this, but it's November 17th. I'm in Park City. It snowed a little bit overnight. So it's starting to feel like we're going into those winter grind months and then hopefully pop out the other side in, January, February, March and be flying.
All right, so the big announcement that's coming out on Wednesday is the rematch is back on. You versus Cole, this time in a 2 mile. Take us through, I guess, like the decision making process to line up a 2 mile at Millrose this time around.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about that this morning. It kind of seems like Millrose tends to go 3K, 2 mile, 3K, 2 mile, like
Yeah.
alternating years. Last year we had a great battle over 3K. Maybe it would be a little repetitive to do that exact same thing again. The 2 mile, I mean, it's basically the same event, but you've got, different national records to go after for, people from every country. It's not run quite as much as the 3K. So it's kind of fun just to hop into a different event. It's always fun to run a 2 mile, especially outdoors, just because you don't have all these PRs to compare to and years to compare to. So uh, yeah, Millrose has always treated me well. I've had great performances there. I've really enjoyed the environment every year. So it'll be fun to get back out there and race again.
So with Cole, deciding to go for the 2 mile option instead of the, say the Wanamaker, it's setting up, for the two of you to go head to head again. What makes him such a good opponent, and why last year's race was, I mean, it delivered in terms of just like the headline billing for sure.
Yeah, I think both the Wanamaker Mile and the 2 mile. I don't know if the 2 mile gets a cool name, but the 2 mile. You get really dynamic matchups in both of those events, especially during the indoor season. And I think you'll see even more of that with next year being an off year where people try new things. Um, it was fun last year where Cole is much more known as like a mile up to 5K guy. I'm more known as a 5K up to 10K guy. So a 3K was a pretty even match. And the 2 mile, I think, will be pretty similar again. In the Wanamaker mile, sometimes you have guys like, more like Eric Jenkins dropped down in the past, where he's more of, at the time, was more known as like a 5K guy. And so you get these really unique matchups that you probably wouldn't get in the lead up to a championship, but you can get in the lead up to like a Millrose, because people are looking to race and have some fun.
What do you think 723 for 3K converts to for the 2 mile?
I'm honestly not sure, but my guess would be like 758 high or something like that.
That puts you guys right on track to, I mean, obviously then break the world record. Do you think, because it feels like a easy question at this point. It's like what matters more here? Is it the time or is it the win? And obviously, I think you're going to say the win. And just like last year, it just feels like it comes as a byproduct of two of the best going head to head. What really stood out from last year's race that kind of put it over the edge? You guys were on American record pace for a good chunk of it, and then when Cole took it with 600 to go, I think that's sort of like the little bit of a surge needed to push it into the world record territory. And so, I mean, this time around, I talked to Cole a couple hours ago. He's definitely thinking world record, but similarly, like it's just going to come out of really good racing between the two of you.
Yeah, exactly. Last year, it's really hard to chase a record alone. Like really, really hard. It's so much easier when you're racing. Um, to the pacer in the race will probably go a mile, 2K at most. So that leaves a fair amount of time where you're, just with your competitors. And to do that whole drive by yourself and, have no one on your shoulder or anything, it's a little harder to really push and get everything out of yourself. Even if you just have someone on your shoulder, that's somewhat nicer than just going at it alone. So last year we had some lead changes, which was nice, and I think that drove the pace on. But the lead changes were not like, I don't think at any point Cole was like, oh, the pace is slipping, we're going to miss the record, I need to go out to the front. It was, what's my best shot at winning this race? And I think it'll be the same thing this time. Each of us want to win. And I believe Ray and the meet directors are setting it up to be quite fast. So I think the time will come. I think all runners have learned that lesson before, where like you focus too much on the time and it slips away. But you focus on how you want to race. And if you're in the correct race with the right people, then the time is kind of this, byproduct, like you said. So I think it'll be quick. That's a fast track. It's a great environment. They always have a good rabbit, and you put good guys in the field that are motivated and want to go, it usually goes pretty quick.
So one thing that I like doing is just sort of, now that we have like a full 2025 season to look back on, and sometimes those early races are places where you can work on certain things or have some takeaways that will be valuable down the road. That 3K at the Millrose Games, what purpose did it ultimately serve, or what did you learn from that race that was valuable in another race in the 2025 season?
I mean, it was a great kickoff confidence-wise, to get the ball rolling, and kind of, I felt like I had worked on my kick a little bit and I had improved it enough to be there with Cole at the end. My early season outdoor races last year, or I guess this year technically, were Grand Slam, and those races came down to kicks. So I felt a little more confident going into those. By the time the season drew to an end in September, I think I was a little tired out from all of that focus and attention on kicking. But you live and you learn. And I think this year I'm taking a little more sensible approach to the build. And I don't feel as much like I need to prove as much to myself, that, when I'm in shape and feeling good, that I can compete with the best guys in the world. So, there's takeaways from every single race. The indoor season for most people is like usually set up for outdoors. It's the more important season for most of us. It'll be a little different this year because, you don't have that global championship looming over your head. So you might see some people maybe overemphasize outdoors or indoors compared to outdoors, or, look at a road race instead of an outdoor race. Maybe try some new stuff. Like, this is when meets put on cool stuff like a 2K, and you get to go over, like, no one ever races the 2K, but it's fun to go after a record in the 2K. Stuff like that, where I think you'll see a lot more pros, doing stuff that they're uncomfortable with, but is exciting.
Where do you think your level of fitness was at, getting into Tokyo compared to where it was where you were in world record shape during the indoor season? But then again, like, you just had so much going on in between that and Tokyo. Like, did you feel that, hey, like, all right, I was in crazy shape for indoors, and then did you surpass that, or did you try and get close back to it, or by the time that the World Championships rolled around?
It's hard to really compare fitness levels, and the fitness required for certain races sometimes are different, if that makes sense. Like, in a pure time trial, it rewards a certain type of fitness where you can just grind from the gun. In a world championship, it rewards, like, you need to be ready to roll with the punches. Where there's a surge, it comes back. You certainly need to be ready to kick at the end. I think in the indoor season, my engine was running really, really hot. Like, I felt like I could hold a super, super high pace, and I could kick a decent amount off of it. I think the race with Cole at Millrose last year, we really didn't close like that fast. A lot of times in indoors, people are able to close in like 25 seconds or 26 seconds.
It was 27, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we closed much faster than 27. It was just that we had been going from the gun, so it kind of rewards a slightly different fitness, if that makes sense. Like, and I think reflecting back during the indoor season, I felt more fresh going into those races. By the time outdoors was coming to an end, like, was definitely a little more fatigued. And I think that was just need to do a better job this year of mapping out training and priorities and certain races and slotting them in at the right time and taking breaks at the right time. But yeah, I think this year I'm really excited about, well, the entire year. It feels like a free year where you can actually, uh, not build everything around the world championships and can have some fun. Because I'm trying to think when Cole went pro. I mean, a lot of the people that are pro right now, it's been a long time since an off year. So for most of us, this is our first off year.
Yeah, I think this is Cole's
So
first off year. Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how everyone navigates it.
All right, so two newsy items were one, your coach Mike Scannell said no cross country. Why that decision?
So I wanted to do cross country. Unfortunately, I ended the season with a bit of an injury. In I thought I had it fixed coming off of off season by taking some time off, and it turns out I did not have it fixed. So I had to really take more time off than I wanted to, and I started working out again last week. So that gave me about 3 weeks until U.S. Cross. And when you go through an injury and then you think you're okay and then come back and it turns out you're not fully healthy again, you don't really want to do that again. So I was like, to squeeze the fitness into 3 weeks of workouts, potentially make this thing worse again, it just didn't feel worth it. I think if the timing was a little different, then it would have allowed for it. But yeah, unfortunately, I just couldn't run for quite a while. That's one of the reasons I was biking quite a bit, which was fun. But I couldn't run pain free for quite a while. But I feel good now and have done some workouts and feel good. But I just don't want to condense it too much to get ready for US Cross and risk blowing this up again.
Yeah, what was the injury?
The injury was it's an injury to my pelvis, specifically to my pubic symphysis, which I had never even heard of until I injured it. It's like the joint at the front of your pelvis. So I think most people know where like your SI joints are on the back. It'd be like the complementary joint on the front of your pelvis. And mine was like super inflamed and aggravated, and a lot of the muscles around were pretty upset as well. So took me a while to get everything to calm down.
When did you start to feel that? Like, was the pain lingering, I guess, in Tokyo a little bit?
I'd say, I mean, it was lingering a little bit, but I don't think it affected performance. I think for some reason taking time off almost made it feel worse. Like I think it felt better when I was racing in Tokyo than it did after like a traditional off time after the season. So it was a bit of an odd one, but I think it's in the rearview mirror now. And yeah, I'm feeling good. It was weird. It never really was that painful or like didn't feel like that bad, but it was just like kind of that lingering thing that now is the time to fix it for sure. Like I don't want this to come back up again.
So then, when you've had a chance to kind of unpack and reflect on your races in Tokyo, I guess, like, what were some of the big takeaways? And then it's just so interesting to me what the 5K and 10K have become, because it feels like it's just luck now in terms of like who can come away with the win, because you can't take the pace out from the gun without sacrificing yourself. And then if you leave it to a kick, everyone in the field believes they've got the best kick and kind of can leave it to some surprises or some contenders that maybe wouldn't have been able to hang in most race if it was a little bit quicker. So I guess, like, what was your total assessment of the races in Tokyo?
Yeah, I mean, the depth gets stronger each year. Every year there's like one guy that retires, and then there's like five new guys that are just as good that pop up. So you get like these super, super loaded fields, and it makes it exciting, I think, for a fan, especially for a casual fan, because, even if you have a favorite in the race, like it's a little bit more unpredictable than it has been in the past, where usually the fittest person won, and it was very clear who the fittest person was at the beginning. And with a lap to go, it was clear who was going to win. With 200 to go, it was clear who was going to win. I think, in a lot of the men's distance races specifically, you saw where, you didn't know who's going to win with 50 meters to go. I think that made for really exciting races, and I think that's mostly attributed to the depth where, everyone is going into these races in great fitness, and the deciding factor is how well you can kick off of that super fast pace, or in more of the 10K, like how you can navigate a field and conserve enough energy to have the best kick at the end. Um, I think for me, like reflecting specifically on my races, I thought I felt good in the 10K, but I just felt so flat when I tried to kick, and maybe that was due to fatigue, maybe that was just too much energy wasted during the race. Could have been a lot of things. And then in the 5K, I felt like my best shot was to make it quick, because I didn't feel that sharpness that I had in the past for the kick. So tried to squeeze it, rather early on, and squeezed myself basically. And turns out I was the one that was most fatigued by the end from pushing that pace. It was a pretty disappointing World Championships. I was still in the races, but at the end of the day, like I wasn't in the true fight for, being towards the front of the race. So not my proudest one, but yeah, there's a lot of things to reflect on and take away. And, I think going into future years, you'll only see more of that where it becomes incredibly difficult to run away from people. Gone are the days where like 3 people break away, and with 3 laps to go, you're like, all right, there's the podium. I don't think that'll happen very much going forward in any of the distance events.
So if you got magic wand, one do-over in each one of those, in each one of the finals, like what would it be?
I think in the 5K, maybe waiting a little longer before going to the front. I think going to the front was still my best opportunity, but maybe waiting a little longer before starting that, because by the time 3 laps to go came in that race, I was pretty shelled. In the 10K, it'd be more, do a better job of conserving energy, not as much motion, not as much back and forth, like do a better job of just sitting in the pack, especially in a race where I don't need to be the guy that runs down the breakaway. Like if someone does break away in the middle of a 10K, the field will kind of come back. I don't think anyone will let just a flyer go these days. So not putting as much energy and emphasis into always watching the front and seeing what's going on. Because in that race as well, when it really came time to kick, I just was flat.
All right. So one thing that you brought up a couple times, earlier was, the beauty of the off year is being able to try new things. Your coach said that we might see you in an event that you've never done before. And you've done everything from 800 to 10K. So unless it's the steeplechase or a half marathon, all right, I guess like unless you want to come out and just say, yeah, I'm going to do a half marathon this in the coming months, what is the percentage likelihood we see you in the steeplechase and the percentage likelihood we see you in a half marathon?
So the steeple, I've always wanted to try the steeple. I've basically always been told I'm too short for the steeple. Um, I think it's more likely you'd see me in a half marathon than a steeple.
Okay.
I haven't quite decided, definitively if that's going to happen or not, but it's something I have my eye on because, I'd like to try my hand at the roads at some point, and I really don't want to wait until like my track career is completely over to then, crawl onto the roads and see what happens. Like I'd like to give it a good go when I do end up on the road. So, yeah, it's on my mind. I think the next month or two will really give insight into when and where I'll feel ready for that. But it's on the table for sure. And that's where like I think in a year where there's a world championship that it just that the half just like it's a little too daunting. It feels like too much of a departure from your main goal. But I think this is a perfect year to try to see what I can do.
Kind of wipes, I guess, like in this hypothetical timeline, like wipes Houston off the table, right? Because it would be very soon in January before Millrose. So it would be probably, this is just guessing aloud, like the potential could be something like, who is it? I think didn't Woody just debut in like at New York City half or something like that? And it's like, it could be like a fast course or something like that. So it's just someone like you, the first go you have at it immediately attracts record speculation.
For sure. I mean, in certain courses like attract that conversation as well. You brought up Houston. Houston is lightning fast,
Yeah,
and that would be a place to go after a quick time. You look at some other courses. New York is a very famous course. Objectively, it's not as fast as Houston. It's not as easy,
not
but
record
sometimes
eligible
you do
either.
get
Yeah.
really fast results there. So that'll be interesting too. Like, I'm used to every track being 400 meters. The courses are all different. The weather can play a bigger factor. The pacer can play quite a big factor. So I think I have some stuff to learn for the roads for sure. I think a lot of things are on the table right now, and it's an exciting feeling. Even if I run a half this spring and it goes incredibly well, I don't think I would have been like abandoned the track and just moved to the roads. But I think you're seeing more and more people kind of use half marathons and 10K, 5K, training interchangeably. I don't think they're too far different that you have to change a ton. Now the full marathon is completely different. Like that, you can't get away with a full marathon without a marathon build. But a half, I think, like with a decent amount of time where I'm focused on half marathon training, I think I could do pretty well. Um, it's completely new territory for me, so I would definitely go in with respect for the distance, but I'd also want to put my best foot forward and really go for it if I end up doing it.
Yeah, I guess has it been interesting to just kind of observe, when old school used to be your days on the track are over, head to the roads, and now it's sort of like Connor has kind of kept his foot, like at least one foot on the track, even if it's for fun, like to jump into the pre-classic 10K to see where he's at, and we'll spike up at the Olympic trials, and then we see just the results translate on the roads before totally like I guess like waving off his track days. That like it's kind of to your point there. It's sort of like, yeah, I mean, it's better to at least start the transition sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think Connor has somewhat led the charge in that where you're going to the roads before like you've exhausted everything you can do on the track. And I think that's why you're starting to see a little more depth on the marathon side for the US in many cases where like, a lot of the East African countries, Japan, they had way, way more depth than the US. And a lot of those athletes would go straight to the roads after, they turned 22, 23, whereas in the US, people were waiting till they were 33 to try the roads. So you, I think you see people reaching better potential, especially for the marathon. At least from what I've seen, it seems like you need one or two to really get your feet under yourself, and then by the third one, you can start running pretty well. And if you start that process when you're 22 rather than 33, you're probably going to get some better top end. You're going to get a little better longevity, and you're going to get much better depth. So Connor's done a great job, and I think you're seeing more and more people. Casey Klinger is a good example. Charles Hicks is a good example. More people are starting to look at the roads at younger ages. I've obviously done most of my career or all of my career on the track so far. And so, yeah, I really don't want to wait till I'm 35 to like, crawl onto the roads and just, collect a check and then retire basically, like I really want to see if I can be good at the roads.
Yeah, because I guess we're talking like a week after the LA 28 schedule like has come out. The 5K, 10K double possible. The 10K marathon double also possible. Like when you saw, I guess, like the outline of things, like what were some of your fun thoughts, I guess, as you laid out? I mean, we're mostly focused on just like what's going to happen in the next couple months, but like curiosity can get the best of you when like these things come out way in advance.
Yeah, I mean, it's an idea. I've always enjoyed the concept of doubling. It just gives you two opportunities to do something in a sport where like your most important event only happens once a year, if that. So yeah, the I guess the Galen Rupp double, the
Yeah.
marathon 10K double is possible. The 5K 10K double is possible as it usually is. Um, the next 2 years will dictate quite a bit on what I will focus on for 2028. Of course, like when I speak to non-runners, their like first question or only question is like, "Are you going to keep training through 2028?" Like they don't know that there's anything between now and then either. Um, and yeah, I think everything's on the table. If a half marathon debut happens, then that will dictate how aggressively I transition over to the roads and how quickly I would move that direction rather than staying on the track. Um, I don't have any illusions about like career length. Like I think shoes have allowed people to extend careers quite a bit, but your career always seems to end like not necessarily on your decision. Usually ends because your body starts falling apart. So I'd like to make the most of it while my body's still feeling good and I'm healthy and excited. And yeah, 2028 is a long way off, but yeah, the doubles are exciting. Whether I go after them or someone else, like it opens up a lot of possibilities. And I think most people feel now that, if you're good enough to make a 5K team, you're probably good enough to make a 10K team. You might as well try. If you're, the marathon 10K team is like a little bit more of a stretch because those are quite different fitnesses to be in simultaneously. But it's been done before.
Yeah. The triple.
Triple, yeah. The Safan Hassan, yeah.
Triple, yeah. All right, Grant. Well, final thing, give people a reason to get their Millrose tickets if they haven't already done so, because it is the best indoor meet of the year. So why should they go and pick up a pair of tickets?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a year where people have been disappointed by Millrose. So you're pretty much guaranteed to get some sort of electric performance. Most years you get several, really, really historic performances. Millrose is my favorite indoor meet on the circuit that I've been able to run. It's really enjoyable. The athletes all like it. The fans love it. It's kind of this, if you've never been, it's a very intimate atmosphere where everyone's packed on top of each other. And you kind of have this like old school feeling because it is a very historic meet in a very historic building. But the track is, freshly resurfaced. You've got these mister things that are like misting down water so that the air is not too dry.
Bicarb.
Yeah. They have aerosolized bicarb that you're breathing in. It's just a good atmosphere. It's really fun. I think everyone goes to that meet expecting to, be in an absolute battle. I've never really looked at like the performance score from indoor meets, but Millrose has to be up there as far as like the World Athletics cumulative point score. It's a great meet.
Sweet. Well, Grant, best of luck in training over the next couple months to get ready, and I'm sure you guys will deliver in another epic showdown at Millrose.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to it.